Doesn't make sense to pay almost $1,100 for Epic Pass. Today we're going to look at the changes and whether you should buy it for the upcoming season. Also the numbers for 2 of my prior seasons. I did end up doing a pretty big deep dive for this, more than I expected, so hopefully this video is helpful. Big favor before we dive in though is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. It surprisingly does help, and if you are new and you want to make quantified decisions, then consider subscribing. Starting with the changes, it's pretty quiet. So no new resorts being added and only a minor price jump. For the full Epic Pass, it's going from $982 to $1,051, so 6.5% increase. This is their highest level and provides unlimited access for a lot of their ski destinations. Also no blackout dates. The other option is Epic Local Pass, which is going from $731 to $783, a 6.8% increase. This one's more of a mini version. You do get unlimited for some places, but not as many, and there are blackout dates. So these are dates that you cannot use the pass, and it's pretty much around holidays, November 27 to 28, December 26 to 31, January 17, and February 14th to 15th. With that, the price difference between the full and the local is $268, about 34.2%. We'll get into this, but it can make a pretty big difference, and it might make sense to pay that extra money. Finishing with the changes in news, Switzerland is becoming more accessible. Verbier Catch of LA has been on the full Epic Pass in the past, but it's now expanding to Epic Local. Here you get the same 5 days, so the same for both passes, and they also removed the lodging requirement. Again, pretty minimal changes. Okay, so what are the key differences between full and local, and which one should you go for? Let's start at the worst case and look at the ones you have no access with. If you're a US skier or snowboarder, you're mostly in luck. The only one that is applicable is Telluride. It is pretty expensive though, coming in at about $245 per day. Taking a look at prices, late in the season, so end of March, early April, it's still $245, so not cheap by any means. So for the full pass, you have 7 days, and any additional ones are 50% off. For local, you have 0. If each day is running you $245 and the difference between local and full is $268, then you almost break even with 1, and then with 2 or more, you come out ahead. Main idea being that if you plan to do 1 trip to Telluride, then it probably makes sense to get the full one. If you're heading up to Canada, then it might be worth considering depending on where you want to go, so you get 7 days total of RCR, resorts of the Canadian Rockies. The ones in British Columbia are the more expensive options, where you probably need about 3 days to break even. For the other ones like Quebec, you might need 4 days since it is a bit cheaper. The other consideration is Australia, where you have 3 that come in at about $100 per day. These are unlimited with the full pass and you don't have access to local, so if you're based there or if you plan to spend a lot of time there, then it probably makes sense. In contrast, Ski Arberg is one I'd probably ignore since you only get 3 days, it's pretty affordable, and there are some pretty annoying requirements. For Italy and France, it might make sense, but they're also pretty affordable, and yeah, that's a balancing act. So for example, for La Trois Vallées, $74 per day, $268 difference, that's about 3.6 days to break even. Also a reminder that a lot of this math is in isolation. If you're doing 2 of these, then you're going to be fine. Okay, moving to the next level, let's look at the ones that both have access, but different levels of access. Unsurprisingly, these can vary pretty drastically. The main key ones are Beaver Creek, Park City, Vail, North Star, Heavenly, Kirkwood, Whistler, and Stowe, which have blackout dates. Again, these are dates that you cannot use to pass, and they're pretty much around holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's, MLK weekend, and Valentine's. Main reason for this, from my understanding, is to deal with crowding. If you have a job that has less vacation flexibility, or you have kids in school with set holidays, then this can make a big difference. For me though, as someone with more flexibility, I'd rather not ski those dates. I guess the one exception is Christmas and New Year's, where it's mostly for vibes and ambiance. I'm going in knowing it's going to be busy, but I'm also enjoying the crowd. All the ones mentioned are pretty expensive, about $249 on the top end, and down to maybe $139, and these are average prices. During these holidays, it actually gets more expensive, so if anything, 2 of these holiday dates would already help you break even. One other difference for the local pass is that you have 10 days total for Beaver Creek, Vail, and Whistler, so all of them together you only have 10. So even if you're not planning to go during blackout dates, if you want to do 10 or more days at those destinations, then it makes sense. At the bottom, you have Crans and Andermatt, which are different, with the full pass being unlimited and Epic Local being only 5 days. Unless you live there though, or unless you go there a lot, probably a non-factor, given that they are pretty affordable, generally in the $70 to $100 range. We actually did end up going to Andermatt, and we'll talk about it later in the video. Pretty good for, I'd say, 2 or 3 days, but otherwise, if you are just exploring, if you're not racing or doing anything particular, you're probably going to get a bit bored unless you're doing off-piste. Off-piste in Europe can be more dangerous though, so be careful. Main takeaway, if you want to ski or snowboard during the holiday weekends at the major resorts, then go for the full pass instead of the local one. Also, if you want to ski Beaver Creek, Vail, and Whistler for more than 10 days in the season. This brings up the key question for today's video of whether it's worth it. So we talked about going from the local pass to the full pass and whether that change makes sense, but what about the local pass as a whole? For this, we're going to focus on the ones that have the same access. There are quite a few and prices do range pretty drastically, so some are expensive like Keystone, as well as Breckenridge, which are north of $200 per day. The prices I pulled were averages, so adults and children, and then the middle number. Out of curiosity, let's look at the adults rate. For Keystone for the end of March, it's $265 per adult per day, $172 for kids. And funny enough, this is already a bit discounted from $292, which is the standard rate. So at Keystone, if you do 3 days, then you're breaking even with the local pass. Technically worth it for one trip if you're doing 3 days, and any additional trips on top of this would be value on top. Looking at Breckenridge, you have the same situation, but arguably a bit worse. $284 per person per day, and that's the discounted rate from $299 normally. Kids here are $185, which sounds absurd to me, and yeah, crazy numbers. If anything, looking at the prices here make the passes feel like a bargain. To be fair, there are also a bunch in the middle ground of 100 to 200 range, and a lot of these are going to be on the East Coast and just a lot cheaper. So for those ones, whether it makes sense, it's more of a math question, and you kind of have to run the numbers for yourself and the cost of those places. Same issue for Vabier, Kacha, Valais, and also Japan. They're good places, but very affordable. So for example, even though Resetsu is on my list for next year and I'm planning to visit as part of my Nisaiko trip, I don't think I'm buying an Epic Pass for the trip. A big reason is the pricing. So even if you're planning to do a lot of skiing, 25 hours is 33,000 yen, which is about $220. Online price is 31,500 yen, so about $210. This is great because it can be used in 1 hour increments, so it is very literally 25 hours of skiing, and that's less than $10 per hour. Pretty affordable in my book, and it lets you play it the way you want to, so maybe get first tracks, and then take lunch and work in the afternoon. In contrast, if you don't want to commit to 25 hours, then you can buy a 5-hour ticket that is continuous, so you do have to fully use it in one go, and that's 12,500 yen. And actually a bit cheaper, 9,800 yen, if you buy it online, so about $65 for 5 hours. For most people, that's probably a full day, and $65 is a bargain. Also note that you only get 5 days in Resetsu, so max value here is 300, and you'd have to get the remaining value in the US or North America. With that said, if you are skiing or snowboarding the more expensive options, then definitely get a pass because that's going to work out, the math's going to math. For the middle ones and the lower ones, it gets a bit tougher because you need a lot more days for it to make sense. It definitely still can make sense though, especially if you live near one of those or if you go very often. But yeah, fundamentally a math question. Let's run through 2 of my prior seasons when we were on the full Epic Pass. So I didn't film as much as my skiing back then compared to now, so for the Icon video I had a ton of footage. This one is going to be more B-roll. The numbers are what matters though. For the first one, we started off the season with Vail and we stayed at the Grand Hyatt there. It was pretty nice and we ended up skiing for 3 days. Price per day per person is about $313. Funny enough, I wasn't really a pass person until a friend invited me to Vail the prior season. It was so expensive that we didn't end up going, and I realized that with the cost of that one trip, I could have bought a full pass, and that's what we did. In that same season, we ended up going to Whistler for 3 days, and it wasn't really the best snow, but it was still fun. Definitely one of those trips where I would have felt ripped off if I was paying out of pocket, given that the snow wasn't great. We ended up staying at the Hilton Whistler, which is almost a ski in ski out, since it is very, very close. If you want to see the full video, it's on the Sebby Funk channel. Adult tickets are $302 Canadian, and children ones are a bit cheaper here at half the price. Doing the conversion, that's about $210 USD right now, so still pretty aggressive. And that was pretty much it for the first season. Even then though, the math still works. My target was more than $1,000, and we got almost $1,600. Maybe with discounts, that market value gets a bit lower, but still pretty expensive. If you're staying in the US, my mental model is that one trip helps you break even, and then 2 trips, you come out ahead. For the next season, we started out pretty strong at Park City and did 7 days of skiing. Again, not the best snow, but we did have a lot of time, so towards the end, it did get a bit better. We ended up staying at the Waldorf Astoria, which was amazing, and also the Grand Hyatt, which was fine. Mandy did videos on her channel, Mandy Roams, for both if you're curious. The prices of tickets are about $312 per day, and I guess technically still cheaper than the normal $328. Later that season, we also did 3 days at Andermatt. We initially stayed at an Airbnb style hotel, and then the Chetty afterwards, which is one of the best luxury hotels in Europe. There should be a full video on Sebby and one of the nicest hotels we've been to. In terms of prices for skiing, it is a lot cheaper, so about 89 francs if you buy the day before. About $101, which is pretty fair. So for a second season, Park City carried the bulk of the weight and represented almost $2,200 in value. Andermatt was comparably more affordable at about $300 in value, but still a nice trip. So for the second season, one trip to Park City already covered it, and then Andermatt was the cherry on top that ended up saving us $300 that we otherwise would have spent anyways. On that note, if you are looking to get one of these expensive passes, one tactic is to sign up for a new card. Main reason is that you get an intro bonus for that spend that you're already doing, and you do have to pay off the card, but that's pretty fair. There's a lot of options out there where you might get 60,000 points for something like 4,000 in spend in the first 3 months. In those cases, 60,000 points is worth about $600. If you're spending money anyways, then you might as well get value back in your pocket. If you want to learn about cards, we do have a page of some of the best current offers, and I'll link it down below, and you'll also be able to find it on AskSebby.com. For a lot of the ones of annual fees, we also have calculators, that way you can run the numbers. It should pop up if you Google card name worth it Ask Sebby, and if it doesn't exist, let me know and I'll make it. Make sure the cards make sense for you and that the links are competitive, but otherwise, using those links is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. If you made it to this point, leave a skiing emoji in the comments down below and I'll try to heart it and also respond. My questions for you is, what are your thoughts on Epic Pass, given that they didn't really do too many changes? Number 2, if you are going for Epic Pass, would you go for the full pass or the local one? Number 3, Epic versus Icon, which one do you like better? And which one are you going for or have you gone for? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite thumbs up, share this, consider subscribing, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.